Welcome back, friends, to 1111, to another surprise guest Sunday. Today, we have someone who I admire greatly because she does all of the things I think are most valuable when it comes to being a human being. And I won't tell you what they are yet because I don't want to steal her thunder, but she is involved in the arts in ways that are incredible because she is a Jack or Jill of many trades and has mastered many of those. And she's brought them all together to create something astounding that is going to meet the needs of people going forward in a way I am so excited to watch unfold. So, without ruining anything or any spoilers, our surprise guest, will you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kerry ALLAN, and I do a lot of different things in the arts. My background is in dance education. So it started out teaching dance, choreographing, performing. I also had a really long stint as a classical musician, teaching and performing in there. From that, I sort of evolved into directing nonprofits and getting more experience. So now, at this stage in my career, getting back to how I wanted to bring dance and movement, art and music all together. I have written and illustrated a new children's picture book called 1, 2, 3 Move With Me, a creative adventure. And it's geared for sort of preschool, early elementary age. But what I love about it is that it is linking all the things that I love together. So, literacy, learning, moving, listening, and experiencing the arts together.
Yay! Now, I want to hear about your background in music. Was it voice? Did you play a particular instrument? What was it?
So when I was young, as so many of us do, I took piano lessons, and I was actually the one to ask for it. My parents acquiesced, and I started out with piano, and then decided when it was time to choose an instrument to play at school to choose the one instrument they did not have on hand to actually try out because it seemed mysterious to me. So I chose the oboe. Sight unseen. I just chose it because it was so rare and uncommon that they didn't even have one there. And so I stuck with it for many years and played and performed and went through part of the even music education major at college. And so, what I love about that experience of working in music, marching band, classical music, orchestra, band, all these different things, is there are a lot of similarities and there are a lot of connections to my world in dance. And there are also similarities and connections to my love of, storytelling and finding expression and finding artistic movements within. And so I feel like although I don't do a ton of playing anymore just on its own, it's definitely a big part of how I approach the rest of my arts outlook. It was wonderful to study and really learn quite a bit, and I was very heavily involved in music every day after school, and doing national competitions and things like that. So I felt like it gave me a really good background of practice, slow improvement, trying again, auditioning, all of those skills.
Now, how did you get into your line of work as it stands now? What twists and turns did your career take to lead you to where you are?
A heavy interest in both dance and music, but only so many hours in the day. At a certain point in time, you're sort of called to make a choice, right? Where are you going to devote your time? So it switched back and forth every few years. But as I was getting into end of college, thinking about what I wanted to be doing professionally after that point, dance was really calling my name. And so I decided to put my efforts there. And we moved to Michigan and started just reaching out, teaching, performing with groups, starting to choreograph with groups. And it was really nice to have lots of different types of studios and universities and organizations that I was working with. So I was getting a nice look at the breadth of differences that there are in dance. And so through the years, as you get more experience, more directing roles, more organizing roles, I think it's a funny little stereotype that artists sometimes aren't the most organized, right? Because we're creating and we're spontaneous. So I was able to have those organizational skills, which helped me then with more of the directing aspect or more of the fundraising or building a board. And so from there, where to next? I had young children. And from that experience, after teaching young children for a while, also teaching adults, I thought, what would I like to put out there in the world next? What's going to be the next big project? So this children's book just kind of called to me because when I would teach creative movement or I would take my daughter to a creative movement class, so much of what we are explaining to children about how to move your body is imagery based. And it's all of these ideas: grow like a tree, flutter like a butterfly, all of these things. But usually you're sitting at a dance studio looking at each other using your imagination, which is great. But I thought, wouldn't it be an extra step if we had a visual to go along with it, like music tracks to go along with it, extra movement information to include, so that we're really tying all of these things together. And so, since it didn't exist to my knowledge, I decided, hey, why not try to create something myself, even if it's just a little home project, which is where it started. But then quickly grew to something that I thought, let's try to get this out in the world. I think that it's an amazing thing to be a child exploring your world around you and your own body in that world. And so, kind of capturing the magic of imagination and imagery with real life movement was something that seemed really fulfilling.
I just love everything about it. The colors, even there's movement on the cover. The words are moving and the colors are moving. I just love all of it.
Thank you. Yes, that is the challenge. How do you make something static, right? Like a picture book, have the appearance and give the same energy as real life movement. I was trying to take on that challenge, and so I ended up developing the illustrations in the book by using some photography to really ground it in real life, and then having sort of imagination fantasy pages where the real life is blending with these paintings and drawings and graphics that hopefully evoke what it might look like inside a child's head.
What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of your work at this point?
I would say that it's about what kinds of human connections being involved in the arts can garner. So, when I was younger, I enjoyed working with my students and I enjoyed working with others. And I was very, very interested in the design aspect. But as I've gotten older and I'm reflecting back on favorite memories or what is the most meaningful, it's definitely about the human connections. And so, there's nothing quite like creating with others. So, whether you're reading a book together, whether you're in a music rehearsal, all coming together to play the same piece at the same time, or whether you're in a dance performance and everyone is working in tandem, there is something really unifying and special about that experience that I think is one of the most valuable things that the arts can bring to us. So that's definitely at the heart of why I love working in the arts. And I try not to lose sight of that, to make sure that any kind of work or volunteering or time that I'm putting into the arts is supporting that value of bringing it back to human connection, community connection, making sure that the way that I am bringing the arts to others is enlightening and supporting and just an open-ended, emotionally positive experience for everybody.
It seems right now so many people are craving connection and community. And I'm hearing the word community more often. People aren't quite sure what it's going to look like going forward, coming out of the pandemic and in the social media and iPhone age. But we know that people really do need it. So I think you're at the forefront with what you're offering. And I think that's part of why it resonates so much with people, is because you're sensing what we all want and desire down in our gut, and you're bringing it to the forefront in these colorful, lyrical, delightful ways. It's a real thrill to get to witness it.
Well, Thank
Uh,
you. I think that there are really, there are really interesting ways that you can create community also. So there are limitations, right, with the technology aspect and getting more into our own devices. So I still do love the in-person moments that I can have with people around me, but also I feel like you can use the connections through these media devices. So if you are kind of connecting with others on a web program, or if you're on a YouTube video and you're sharing, or you're creating a book and somebody's buying it somewhere else in the country, I might not know you, but there's a sense of connection there. And so I think finding those ways to connect in person and being creative about how to connect otherwise is important.
what has surprised you the most about your work?
I would say that there is quite a difference between being the performer of the arts or the teacher of the arts versus being the person in charge of doing something with a product that is produced through the arts. And so, what I think is good to know for people that are enjoying their particular art form as they get more into it and the years pass on, those secondary skills become so very important to learning sort of what you can do and where your strengths are as a person and where your values are as a person and an artist. So, for example, if I'm teaching a class and I'm hired to come in, then I need to lesson plan. I need to make sure that I know enough about my students that I can see what their goals are and help them meet their goals. If I read a book and then it's out there in the world, then it becomes, oh, how do you make people know that it exists, right? How do you find an audience of people that might really love your book? So there's a lot there that you can learn how to do as far as developing technical skills. How do I make a website? How would I get this book into a bookstore? How would I figure out how to make an ebook? How do I figure out how to do an email marketing campaign? All of these skills can help reach audiences, but also you might decide, hey, I really want to focus on the skills that are just very distinct and singular to the arts. Like I really enjoy movement and I also take Pilates and I enjoy working, with the body and how it moves. Okay, so then body science might be something that is your subset or what you move on from and go into physical therapy or massage therapy or something like that. So I think the surprising thing is how much you have to kind of unpeel the layers of yourself and pay attention over the years to see like what's most fitting for you, where do you see yourself going, and make sure that it's not just one singular focus, but many that can support each other.
And have you come across any misconceptions about what you do?
I would say, as far as dance goes, that ballet sort of reigns supreme in most people's perception of what dance is all about, and certain types of stereotypes about ballet, too. Very, very rigid, very restrictive, a very tailored, codified style that you are trying to perfect. And that has a deep, deep tradition for hundreds of years. You think of dancers working from they're very young, every day, working very hard, very competitive, and there's all of that to it. And yes, this is true. But I would say in the dance world, there are so many other layers that are also true. So, for example, I have done a lot of modern dance, and I sort of latched on to the idea of modern dance pretty young when I started reading about it being formed as a rebellion to ballet. I thought, ooh, a rebellion. So, dancers, and not just male directors, but quite a few more female directors, breaking the rules, taking off the point shoes, getting more natural and grounded with their movement, thinking of sort of thought provoking and maybe more socially justice oriented themes to a dance instead of retelling fairy tales. And so I liked that aspect of the modern world, and there's so many differences out there. The tap world is so much fun. It's very different. There are all sorts of genres and styles. So what I would say is when people say, "Oh, okay, so you're in the dance world, right? So you must like really watch your weight, right, and be in the studio all the time." And so it's like, well, you have to decide as a person, right, what
Right.
fits right for you within the dance world and seek out and support the kinds of outlets that are more fitting. And so I think I've tried to do that for myself. And although I've taught in a variety of settings, some more rigorous than others, I feel like in order to be true to myself, I want to be the teacher that is encouraging and supportive, and it won't be one of those memories that someone has. It's very funny when you talk to people about, oh, I took ballet when I was young. And so many have that story of like, well, I went to class and when I was 5, my teacher just told me I would never have the feet for ballet. And then that being a very emotionally scarring thing. Well, guess what? That's maybe not why that child was in ballet class. Maybe they were just wanting to, get exposure to the arts and move their body a little bit. So that is always my goal, is to sort of balance the mental health of my students and make sure that it's a safe space to explore and create together, even if you are choosing a more directed, rigorous professional route at the end.
Brava. What has been the biggest challenge for you being an educator who works in the arts?
Similar to the previous question, I think that as an educator, you are trying to meet the goals of your students. You're trying to meet the goals of, if they're children, their parents, and you're trying to meet the expectations and outcomes of whatever institution they're working in and taking class in, whether that's a private studio, whether that's, a public school program, a university program. And so I think the challenge is finding a way to really define those goals and outcomes and trying to meet everyone's needs at the right level. Because as I said, the student coming in that maybe wants to go and be a professional ballerina, and at age 7, that's what her goal is. And she knows that by age 13, she better get into one of those intensive programs where she's living at a dormitory somewhere so that she can get into these companies. Teaching that student is going to be a very different experience than teaching a student who's walking by their neighborhood studio, decides to take ballet to get some exposure to the dance. So I think that that's a great responsibility as an educator. Sometimes you can't please everybody, but I think being more selective about what the mission is of the institution that you're teaching for and how that aligns with your personal goals and values too. That's something that takes a lot of careful work. So it's a challenge. It's a good challenge, but one that I think you get more perspective on over time.
Have you noticed any shifts in your industry in recent years?
So I would say, being new to the book world, I don't have as much to say on that end, but it's a little bit related to the dance world in that there has been a big uptick in hype on the competitive arena of the arts. And so we have all of these reality shows, and so you think you can dance, and like we're judging and we're saying which one gets the higher score. And that idea has really been amplified, I think, lately. And so I think that although that's true, there is a competitive spirit to auditioning for companies if performance is your goal. I don't know. I think that there's maybe an overemphasis on that shift, and being a little too much attention being paid to deeming what's better, right, and what's not, what's worthwhile art and what's not. And I would say what I'm trying to get to the heart of is, let's sit in the space where we can just really truly appreciate the fact that this art exists. And so it exists and it's magical, and it can do different things for different people, but it doesn't always have to have that competitive spirit. To me, the most fulfilling artistic experiences are when you're working closely with others, and there's nothing else like creating with others and bouncing ideas. There's so much trust and vulnerability and curiosity that you're bringing to that experience. So it doesn't matter if you're just taking a class for fun or for fitness, or if you're doing it professionally. I think that core bit there is the part that I would like to see more focus on in the performance aspect of the arts.
I totally agree. And one of the things, when you brought up the idea of it being competitive, what I have seen is the more competitive it becomes, it does raise the bar on technical skill, I'll say that, but I've seen a drop off with experimentation. And
Yes.
experimentation is what I adore. That's where we
Agreed.
get new genres of whatever it is. We're not going to like all of them, and that doesn't matter. We can still appreciate the effort and ingenuity and creativity that goes into it. And once in a while, there is one that clicks with us. I love that. And I do hope that people that are involved in competition will still allow themselves the grace and the luxury of experimentation, because sometimes that's when you find your true voice. Just what we bring to something, often by experimenting and doing it a different way, can be radically meaningful and change things.
Yes, of course. I think where would we be without the bravery in the space to experiment with innovation, right? We would be in a very stagnant period of redoing the same things that were popular 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But like you, I am very interested in seeing what more we can do, and not just technically, with new
Right.
ideas, with new ways of blending things.
Love it. What is something you can share about yourself that might surprise people?
Well, I have lived in lots of different areas of the country. So I've been able to be a part of the arts world in lots of different settings, which is super cool. So I grew up in the Atlanta area. So I'm very familiar with Southern metropolitan Atlanta offerings. But I also was able to work with groups in Michigan, in Missouri and Manhattan and Brooklyn, and now I'm in New Jersey. And I have family out in California, very near where you are, Joy. And so, what I love about that, and what I think that that can contribute to, just as a person and as an artist, is so many different perspectives and so many different ways of like what's normal, what's done here, and how do we think about other areas. And so, I think sociologically, it's been fascinating kind of get to know these communities and to adjust and to evolve into different ones over time, and it gives you good perspective, I think, for what you're looking for in a community, and being adaptable, but also, yeah, like what kinds of opportunities there might be in different places that are very surprising. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a traveler, but we've been in New Jersey for 3 years now, so that's a long time for us. It's following jobs between both of us and research opportunities. So I think it's lent a spirit of adventure and exploration to our family
Yeah.
that I think has been good.
One of my favorite questions to ask is,
Mhm.
what are your three favorite stories and why? Whether it's books, movies, TV shows, comics, whatever.
I loved this question. And because I tend to love too many things, I really had to think about what I was going to say. Um, but since we're in the children's book genre right now in my life, I decided to start there because I'm doing a lot of reading. I'm doing a lot of reading, at the preschool where my daughter goes and with neighbors around and friends. So I would say that one of my favorite series that I've come across that's a picture book genre is Aaron Becker's Journey trilogy. Are you familiar with the Journey, Return, and Quest trilogy?
No, but that sounds amazing just by the titles.
Okay, I think you would love it. I think everyone should check it out. So there are no words in any of the books.
Oh,
It
wow.
is just beautiful paintings and creating this magical world that this character is going through. And so, as a reader, you are trying to figure it out with your child. It's kind of a complex story, but because there aren't words that the children have to read, you can actually work together and notice little details as it's going along. And it's very just visually stunning. So I thought that that was very inspirational to read that book by him. All three of the books, actually, they go together. The second picture book series has a different vibe to it, but it's just one of those classics for a reason. So the Nuffle Bunny trilogy by Mo Willems, everyone loves it. And I really take my hat off to him because as I'm reading it, there aren't too many books out there that when you're reading something to a child, the adult is laughing as much as the child is. I think that he has a special ability to meet the humor on both levels, just spot on. and also show the development of a child as Trixie gets older and Nuffle Bunny becomes the most important thing to her to maybe something that she can let go but has a special place in her heart. So I love Nuffle Bunny. Um, and my last one that I came up with was Fantasia, the original Disney movie from long ago. I started watching when I was very young. And it's funny until I just said it right now. I see that there's a similarity. No words again. We see storytelling through the animation and the pictures and the music and the movement. And there was a very choreographed sense in Fantasia of how the movement was matching the music that was just fascinating to me. So it's really no wonder that I asked to go to dance class and that I was really drawn to the design aspect of choreography and matching choreography to music. That was my sweet spot of interest. And I credit Fantasia with that because I loved how it was taking something that could be so abstract and make it so inviting for a listener and a viewer, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult.
We're probably just going to put the link to your website in the description box because on the website, they can find all of the goodies associated with your book, including the book, how to get the book itself.
They can. Yes, there is a preview if you want to take a look and see if it's a good fit for you. There's a video preview on YouTube. There are paperback and hardback editions available and ebooks coming soon. So lots of different choices. And if you have children and you are looking for your children to get some more movement as the seasons get colder, you can also click on the YouTube channel link there, and I'll be posting some more guided movement videos for everyone to move along together at home.
Love that. And what are you personally looking forward to next?
I am personally looking forward to bringing the book and the movement series associated with the book to more real life spaces. I have to say, I've done lots of teaching and lots of creative movement, but yesterday I got to take the book to my first classroom to do it all together, read it, and we had this amazing with props and movements, and we had an art project, and we put it all together, and it was delightful.
Oh, no, no, no.
And
You're not getting off the hook that easily. We want details. Can you kind of walk us through what the session was like?
sure. So the book is showing 7 different movements. One page in a real life setting, like a little girl, a photograph of a little girl doing something, for example, like a butterfly stretch, putting her feet together and letting her knees go out wide and wiggling her knees up and down like they're butterfly wings. And then on the next page, it's showing what it looks like in the child's imagination. So she is swirling through a meadow full of butterflies that are moving and sparkling, and she is in the pack. So each of these 7 movements kind of build from small movements to then really fun things for kids to do: leaping, stomping, tiptoeing, all of that. It's hard to just say, I'm going to sit down and have you read this book about movement without giving them the opportunity to move themselves. So, what I like to do is to link what we just read to now we're going to stand up, turn the page. Okay, we're going to do it all together. We're going to have butterfly wings that are scarves. We're going to have this fabric that you can leap over that we're going to pretend is a river. So your leaps are really big, and bring together what they read, what they saw with music that matches it. Talk about how the instruments feel like the movement. And then at the end of the day, I thought it would be really fun to think of a movement like, for example, putting your feet in a first position, which is like a V shape, right? How does that feel to you? Can you draw it? Does it look like straight lines? Does it look like something that's meandering around when you're doing a tiptoe? How does it feel to you? And so that way, we're using all of these different mediums to explore how everything is connected through the arts.
I have to tell you, I rarely do regret, but I so regret not being a child in your stuff that you're doing now. I can't even imagine how it would have shaped my life if I'd had this kind of experience. In our non interview podcast segments, we assign listeners a tiny task each day. Is there any sort of tiny task you would like to assign them today?
Well, as I was sitting at preschool circle yesterday, we were talking about how important it is to be thankful, right? With Thanksgiving coming up, we're talking about maybe being mindful of how many things we can feel thankful for in a day. And I thought that that was a very good first step, but maybe the second task that I would like to ask of everybody is, what can you actively do today that's going to add to someone else's thankful list?
Oh,
I will give a small example, very small, but just instead of one moment of time, it became a cycle of kindness. So when we first moved to this house a few years ago, very friendly neighbors, and there was one particular neighbor who knew, oh, you have a 4-year-old in your house. So one day we opened the door and we had this lovely teacup full of flowers. And she sent me a message saying, I hoped that she would think the fairies left it for her. And I said, "That is so kind." We were so thankful. Our hearts were warmed, and it could have just been that was a nice singular thing, but we decided, our family and talking together, that we wanted to make our own collection once the flowers got old and add some hand-drawn art to it and surprise her with the teacup back. So now it's become a little tradition that once every few weeks someone will get a nice surprise, whether it's some treats with a teacup or art or flowers. So that was one little thing of like, oh, that would be kind to do. That has created this tradition that's really meaningful to us. So you can think small, you can think big, but I think thinking about what you can actively do to add to somebody else's bucket being full is such a great thing.
oh, that made my entire Thanksgiving. That's absolutely beautiful. And of course, I love the tea thing, being that our arts
I know.
philosophy is called
Whimsicality.
whimsicality. Exactly. Is there any advice you would give to someone who doesn't know how to get started when it comes to working in the arts?
Hmm. I would say some of what I've previously mentioned is it's very true. So the arts, they are vast. There are so many different kinds of ways of being an artist. There are different aspects of the arts that are going to draw you in more than others. So I'd say don't be afraid to try lots of different things before setting out on a path. I think that there are lots of opportunities for growth, internships, volunteer work, so you can really learn more about what it is that is going to suit you best in the arts. And so we're very familiar with the performer story of training, auditioning, doing that, but there is so much more. So like I was saying, if you are enjoying like the science behind the movement, there are so many body science connections. If you feel like you're really good at organization and direction, then owning a private studio or getting involved in the administration aspect of an arts organization could be more suited to an outlet that is good for you over there. If you're really into the arts but bringing it to children, there's so many choices. There are public school enrichment programs, there are private studios that cater to classes, and so think of it as finding your niche through experience. And yeah, thinking of it as being a much wider world where anyone can carve out a special place that is fitting for them.
That sounds perfect, actually. Before we end here, are there any last thoughts you'd like to share on anything at all?
I just want to say how thankful and appreciative I am to get to talk with you today and to have your support in getting this first book of mine published. I love that our visions are very similar as far as incorporating different art forms together, and the more they mix, the better and the stronger and the more connected they are and we are. So I'm very, very grateful for you and for anybody listening, and just hope that everyone is able to take the time to be thankful and to be a positive presence in anyone else's life around you, and that you give yourself the leniency and the space to move. When we're happy, we move. When we celebrate, we move. And so everyone is a mover. And so I would encourage you to find outlets to allow you to feel that joy in movement because it's there for everybody.
Yay! And for those who very wisely check out the book, I have to say what an unusual this experience this was for me because I didn't do anything. Kerry did it all. That was so unusual for me. I'm used to having to design stuff, format stuff, edit stuff. Nope. Kerry did it all herself. And I just have the privilege of getting to, witness it and support it. But my favorite thing about, well, there are a lot of things that I like about it. I guess one of the little gifts in it was, if you get the book, you get the video that goes with it. The video is amazing. I'm not going to say anything about what the video is. I'm just going to tell you it alone would be worth it. But to think that it comes complementarily with the book is astounding. And you put it all together, and it's just a very, very special project. I just feel so blessed that we get to even be on the fringes cheering you along, let alone promote it. So thank you for that opportunity. But more than anything, thank you for what you're doing in the arts, because as I said, I find it personally to be very meaningful and needed in the world right now. And would you mind coming back on in a few months to let us know how things have been growing and evolving and where you are with everything and what we can look forward to next with you?
I would love to. I am looking forward to it.
Yay! I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Kerry. This has been such a treat for me. Charisse Som, everyone. Wishing you a gorgeous Thanksgiving with myriad opportunities to be thankful and spread that love to give to others so they could be thankful, just as Kerry suggested. That was such a beautiful approach. Love to you all. Tuta.